Okay, so hello everyone. We're just about to start the live stream. It's going to be a bit different this week because we're going to be talking about the new firmware update that's in testing. I'm actually going to do some of this first bit on Instagram as well, which I haven't got very nicely set up. So yeah, there'll be a little bit of confusion because yeah, going to be running that on both to start with. So bear with me while I attempt to make that neat as well. Yep, so we're going to start talking mostly about the new firmware to start with. If anybody's got any specific questions, as always, just give me a yell. All right. Okay, yeah. So we're going to run through the new amp captures. So this is the neural amp modeler. So yeah, this is the neural amp modeler. NAM is so it can load standard nano models. To start with, this is the testing firmware that's just gone live near the end of last week. So if you're keen on testing this and you've got a Beebo, you can try it now. It isn't the final version. There's still a bunch of stuff we're going to change. Right now, you can't import captures. You can just use the existing ones. We captured these all at Deluxe Guitar, so we've got Diesels and Friedman stuff. If you go into a particular capture, like into the Soldano here, you'll see you can change between a bunch of different parameters. So you can see you can turn off the different switches, and you have different captures for some of the knobs. So in this case, this is a lot of different captures because there's all those different combinations. So in this case, there'll be a capture with the bright knob off, the overdrive on, the crunch off, and mid volume or something. And there'll be all of those iterations there. So you end up with a huge collection of captures, but an easy to navigate interface. So yeah, and you'll see, you can see pictures of the amps, browse them like that. So we've got some great stuff. Obviously, things like the Josh Smith Morgan will stack well with the Flat 5. They all will sound pretty nice together though. Here's the Soldano, for example. And you can, of course, stack that together like that. So yeah, you'll see the amps are pretty easy to navigate. You can easily go, if you want this, the Victory here, it's got a smaller set of knobs captured. It's got those two different volume knobs, confusingly. And then, if you go, some of the amps have got a very limited set, like the Milkman here. They were just things that we thought sounded good in the captures. Then things like the Diesel have, more channels. Friedman, it's got a couple of switches. So these are just the current set of amps. We're going to be capturing more amps. And obviously, this is the first testing update, which you can grab now. But it's also going to, we're also going to allow you, obviously, to import your own captures and capture your own stuff. So we're getting this first testing update just so people can check all of this works fine, and then before the full release of the update, it'll have being able to import your own captures. We're actually writing our own process to make capturing more easy as well. So yeah, if you've got any questions about this, of course, always happy to answer them. So yeah, there's a bunch of captures already on here, thanks to Deluxe Guitar here in Melbourne for letting us try some of the things. And we went to their lovely shop and captured a bunch of these amps, things, especially stuff that's harder to get for everybody, like the Magnetones and some of these rarer amps. We're going to have captures of some vintage stuff as well. Obviously, if you go onto Tone Hunt, the NAM site, You can already find a bunch of nano captures. Knobs instead of switches, no. So there was just a question about, so if there's things like EQ settings or knobs, like there are, so if you go into one of these ones, you'll see there are a number of, this is scrollable, so you can have more things here. They are specific captures, so there aren't blends, which is what we're going to stick with. Having those interpolated or something means that the captures are no longer really accurate. Instead, we're preferring to have a fixed set here, and then if you want to have more tone shaping, obviously there are other options for that because you've got things like tone shaping in your input stage, or tone shaping in the cabs and stuff like that, or in EQs afterwards. That just leads me to the next bit. Currently, I'm running the mono cab after this. It's using quite a lot of CPU, you can see. So you definitely, you're only going to be able to run a couple of modules at once. The amp captures are very heavy. The nice thing is that they sound fantastic, but again, they're very heavy. So yeah, the plan is, that they will be these kind of switch-based. If you want different levels, you choose between them. From my testing so far, that feels pretty good. Usually, if I want a little bit more volume or a little less volume, obviously I can adjust the gain in the cab for just volume. And if I want to change gain by a tiny little bit, that's not, I can change the input into the pedal. So yeah, you've got all of those options. And then if you want to change between distinctively different styles, obviously you can go in and say, hey, I want to go to the... So you have to load a new capture, so there is always going to be time. Not very much time, but even 2 minutes. So it's not something you'd want necessarily on a foot switch or something like that, unless you, can deal with a little bit of change. It's quite nice to be able to change between those easily. Sorry, I'm using the guitar with one hand because I'm using the phone with the other. Yeah, so that's a brief rundown of the new, so this is in testing at the moment. You can write descriptions in here, tags. You can search for the amps that you want by just typing them in here. So, so yeah, you can just search for stuff. If you want to get rid of the search, just back and then enter. So yeah, that's in the latest testing update. There's some other changes in the latest testing update. So again, this is a testing one, so it's there could be problems in it. Just if there are, report them back. If you need to use this on stage tomorrow, I would recommend not grabbing the testing update. So far, we haven't any reports of problems, but yeah. Somebody just asked if there's a chance to increase the CPU power. Not with the current hardware, really. The models are just very computationally complex. So, with the current setup, this is a quad-core ARM, but because it has to run on 500 milliamps, you can't really have a much faster processor. Power and performance are just correlated at a certain level. So yeah, we'd have to do something more cunning with power usage to really have much more oomph, which maybe it's something we'll do in the future. But at the moment, yeah, it's definitely not going to be possible. This is as fast as this can go at the moment. So yeah, that's the new firmware that's in testing at the moment. Should be. So over the next week or two, we're going to add the rest of the features in, mainly around importing and training, and then capturing amps, and then it'll be up. There's also some new stuff in the latest update. Strum is in there, our MIDI controller, the strumming based one. and there's some fixes to the quantizer. There's some startup-related fixes that help in some situations, and some other just general improvements and other things I've probably forgotten about. So yeah, if you test any of the stuff, just report them back, and we'll keep improving it. So that's yeah. These are these are some of the things about the new amps. Yeah, if you want to see this video in decent quality, if you're watching on Instagram, it's also up on our YouTube channel. These are weekly live streams. So now, that'll be the end of chatting about the new update. So we'll continue on to our usual YouTube stream of going through all of the modules we're up to M today. So yeah, this will be the end of the bit on Instagram. If you want to continue watching the rest of the run through of all the modules that we do every week, that'll be over on what's it called? YouTube. I'll just see if there's any other questions. Yeah, so check it out, test it, see if it's all good. Yeah, you'll be able to load lots and lots of amps. Yep, you can navigate them through the pretty pictures. And I'll just check if there are any other questions. Yeah, no, just people saying good things. Cool. All right, that's the end of the Instagram one. I will continue the general run through of the modules over on YouTube as well. So, thanks for that. All right. Now that I have both hands free, I can continue. Thanks for everybody watching on on YouTube, and sorry for the multitasking there. I am eventually going to have a way that I can work out how to stream to Instagram and YouTube at the same time, but so far I have failed. If anybody knows of a good way to do that, please tell me. All the ones I've seen look incredibly sketchy. So yeah, again, it's the amps, and they sound pretty good. Now that I can actually pick up the guitar because I got two hands, yeah, they're pretty fun. These are pretty chunky sounding. Yeah, I quite like these. So yeah, and you got some great clean tones as well. So that's obviously something gainier. The Victories sound nice for bassier stuff. I was trying this on the weekend with my bass 6, and it was very enjoyable. Obviously, yeah, some nice clean tones to be had, and then boost them from over here. Okay, there we go. So yeah, obviously you can get some fun sounds out of the amps. So I recommend checking these out if you've got a chance. I'm really enjoying a couple of them. Some of the Milkman and some of these Magnetones are really nice for cleaner stuff I've been finding. And there's a couple of nice options for gainier stuff, which is, yeah, interesting for me because it's not, as much my usual thing. So, obviously I'm playing a Telecaster here. But a Telecaster with switchable humbuckers. Yeah, which I'm quite happy with how this. I'm happy with how these sound. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the what's it called? Amps, and yeah, check them out. You can, if you're keen on testing them, you can test them, now. There is one reported bug at the moment. which is that on the Josh Smith Morgan, which was obviously the very first one we captured because, you know, Josh's stuff is great, and it sounds obviously great combined with the Josh Smith 5.5. Alas, you'll notice this is boost. That's meant to be boost off, and now if we press this button, yeah. So obviously they're switched around. Boost off is actually boost on, so we'll fix that in the next update. Both sound good, so. So, yeah, still pretty happy with that. So we'll do a quick run through. M is super long, so we're probably not going to get through that many of them. And I've been babbling about the new amps. Oh yeah, as I mentioned, there's a few other updates. There's the quantizer is hopefully working, so check that out if you can, if you're testing it. Strum is in there. Test that out if you can, if you're testing the latest firmware, especially how it behaves with MIDI. All right. Yeah. Somebody says the sound quality of the captures. If he says, yeah, sound quality of the captures is good. Yeah, I'm really happy with how the captures sound. I'm very happy with how they work. There's a nice variety too. I think it's good. They really, the different amps do sound very different, and that's really useful. Especially because, at home I don't have a room for that many large-ish amps, and even here in the factory I don't have a huge collection of amps. I only got a couple. So especially I've got a big combo at home, and it takes up a lot of space. So being able to have a variety of different ones is definitely very nice in a compact environment. Because you can't have that many 115 cabs before they start to take over. All right, continuing on our list of M's, which we'll do briefly. Oh, we get to the fun stuff straight away. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot in M because we get into MIDI. I think we'll just, and MIDI just goes on forever, as you can see. I think we're going to have a whole section on, next week is just going to be all the MIDI stuff, because then I can set everything up for testing MIDI. I can have a synth here for output and a keyboard here for input. I've got some of the Morningstar controllers, so I'll grab some of them, and we can show a lot of different MIDI in and MIDI out situations. So yeah, next week we'll focus on the M stuff. We might also get distracted by another firmware update, because hopefully we'll get that one out next week as well. But now we will go on to a couple of our faves. This one's about to get an update pretty soon too, Macro Oscillator, but probably in the next month. So yeah, Macro Oscillator. You've seen this one before. It's a port of Platts by Mutable Instruments. Let's add that. First thing you want to do if you're adding a macro oscillator in is all the synths output at pretty much full level. Like if you're running on Hector, they'll give you a plus minus 5 volt signal, so it'll be full range signal. Same on Beebo, you'll get really hot signals out, which will, melt your speakers and your ears and brain. So don't do that. So let's turn gain right down and connect this guy up, and I'll show you a few things. I'll drop in the, I'll drop in a chaos controller first because that's easy, and then no, I lied. I'll drop in the note sequencer first. Note sequencer. Yeah, and chaos. All right. This will give us some obvious options. And so I'll show you what happens. So we'll connect the out. You'll see in the text what the aux does. It does different things for every different model. So we'll do out, we'll connect out up to VCA, and then we'll connect the VCA up to our outputs. And we'll turn that up a little bit. And you'll see it's just continuously making a tone now, because it's not getting a trigger. Now, if we connect up our note sequencer to our voc per octave, our pitch input, set some notes, you see they already start to change. We could also drive this from strum, obviously. So we're starting to play through notes there. But the sound is continuous. Why is it continuous, you ask? Because we're not sending a gate or a trigger into it, which is what turns it on off. We can also just use this continuously and have an envelope running after it. That's the normal way to run an oscillator, is you run an oscillator into a filter and an envelope, and then you control, say, this VCA could be controlled by an envelope. But this module actually has those built into it, so we can connect our chaos controller trigger out up to trigger. And now you'll notice that now we're getting triggers. I'm not using a synced clock for those. So you see that some of the changes are in between the triggers. So there's a trigger and it's changing at the same time, so you get those slides, which may or may not be what you want. We can also get triggers, instead of getting triggers from here, we can get triggers, we can get pitch information as well as triggers from here. You can grab these obviously from lots of different places. So let's give our X output up to voc per octave. Now we'll go into the X voltage. And we can describe how that's quantized. And obviously we can run this into a quantizer now, which in the latest version actually works, which is good. So that's... I'll just turn this guy down a little bit, because I heard last week I was a little bit quiet over the top, so hopefully the volume of the mic is okay over the volume of the random background boobly boobs. We might just calm this down a little tiny bit. Yep, there we go. Let's now see. So, really to get interesting, we've got a lot of modulatable parameters, and to get interesting results out, it's great to start modulating some of those parameters, as you should always do with all the modules. But, so, you'll see here described each of the different models. Again, this is based off Platts by Mutable Instruments, so there is lots of videos about both of these, and there's a full what's called manual about it. So definitely worth checking out some of those if you need particular information about them. Obviously our interface is very different. So you've got, there were two outputs, you remember? One is the main output, and this text down here describes what the other output is. So it's the sum of both of the waveforms in this case. So this is a pair of classic. And now we go to, see it says wave folder curve variant. Axis sub-oscillator. So if we route out our aux now, I might route it into a different VCA. So we can control level of that independently. Let's connect up this guy to these ones. And aux out. Oh, yeah, that is the second time I've done that, I'm sorry. Turn that one down before you do that. Everybody should have probably been screaming at me before doing that again. Sorry. Yeah, remember, turn down the VCA before you connect things to it. Otherwise you will once again deafen everybody watching. I'm trying to avoid that. Anyway, so this one is the sub-oscillator there. Let's turn this one all the way down now. And you'll see sub-oscillator. Aux out is simulation. So they have different ones. Granular format oscillator, harmonic oscillator, wavetable. Oh, aux out is a lo-fi version. Let's try both of them. Again, sorry. Normal fi. Okay, that doesn't sound super different to me, but you know. Yeah, limit it next time. Chords. Aux out is root note. So obviously you get the stacked chord on this one. If we turn this one on, you get just the root note. So that, yeah, that's the thing to know. Again, this color, this row is mostly kind of tonal stuff. This one is mostly percussive things, like you get the bass drums. Which at that pitch doesn't sound very bass drummy. But let's go into tone. And you can go from kind of 808 to 9090 kind of sounding. And you can change how that decay works here. Again, we're taking in tones, our bass drum has different pitches. Oh, I just got a question. Did the newer modules that got added to the Platts firmware get incorporated? So for a while, when Mutable released that update, there wasn't the source code for the update as well, but they've now released that as well. Mutable Instruments have. So yes, that will be in a future update. The other modules for Platts. So again, yeah, so these ones are percussive. So you've seen how, you can change parameters in here for frequency, all of these things. All of them will say what they are. Against them, they've also got what the name of the knob on the original Eurorack module would be, because obviously you had to look up the manual to find out that harmonics was in harmonicity here, or timbre was brightness, or morph was decay time. In our version, obviously, we show that, but we show you both things. These ones here are the attenuverters for the modulation inputs, so you can have something controlling morph. So if we grab one of these, we can send another X or a Y. I'm not using a Y, let's do that. And we can send that into morph. Turn that up a tiny little bit. And then if we make our Y do something, and then we go, so nothing's happening yet because we need to turn on our modulation doing things. You see now that morph's, moving around and doing stuff. Again, we've got a lot of drum options, a lot of variety there. Yeah, that's the basics of how the macro oscillator works. So here, you select one of these. You can select these via an input as well. There's a CV input for controlling the model. So you can go through these, each beat can have a different model if you want. And all the other things are controllable via CV or MIDI. So that's the macro oscillator. Okay, yeah, we'll do these last couple. Matrix mixer is pretty straightforward. Just get this. So we'll route the output of this VCA, which we'll turn down a tiny little bit first. We'll route that into the matrix mixer. So you see our matrix mixer has a bunch of inputs and a bunch of outputs. So we can route one of these into there. Input 1, for example. And then we'll route output 1 there. And now you can reduce or boost that signal. So obviously, below 1 is cutting it, and you can route that to the different outputs. So currently, you'll see that input 1 is routed left, input 2 is routed right, and the send is input 3. It's routed to it. But obviously you can matrix route these to any ones you want at any levels, which is going to be handy for drums and stuff like that. I've got this one called send, the output being called send. So there's 4 inputs and 3 outputs in this case. The output being called send because I often use that to send to things like reverb or delays. So that's very handy for controlling that kind of behavior. So that's the matrix mixer, which is pretty straightforward mixer. But is handy for mixing that kind of stuff. All right, this gets to more weirdness, but could be fun. The last 2 we'll talk about today. Max is one of our logic things. So it takes in, it's a CV thing. So it'll give you the maximum of the two values that are coming in. This can be useful for logic operations as well. Yeah, if you're taking in so a CV, you might, for some reason, want to know which one of the two to only send out the larger of the two. You can, yeah. So you, there is some slight fun you can do with this. I'm trying to think of nice little examples with this. So you could use it for things like sending out stuff when something is bigger than another thing. So it sends out the value that is bigger. But that can be an interesting way of combining two signals. Obviously, this is usable up to audio rate as well. Mostly you'll get weirdness if you try and put it with audio rate signals, though. Like, you won't get a lot of useful things out of being able to do audio rate signals for that. But yeah, max and min might be useful in cases, the opposite is obviously min. Max and min are basically, yeah, logic operations. It's got two inputs, A and B. You can either do them from the CVs, from these controls, or you can do them from CVNs. It's also handy for limiting a signal. If you've got min and max, you can clamp a signal to be in a particular range for a CV. So say we'll disconnect this Y output. We'll connect this Y output through this max one. We'll put it into A. And then we'll connect that output into our morph one. Turn this up a little bit. So it's going into A. So it'll give us the maximum of this one, 0, and this one. So it'll always give us this one. But if we say never want it to never be less than a half, that'll give us the maximum of this one, A, which is going to be the chaos controllers, whatever it wants to put out. It might put out a 0.3, or it might put out a 0.7. If it's 0.3, then we're just going to get this value. So we're constraining that range, which if you're running from an LFO or a chaos controller or something, using a min and max like this to constrain that range, again, see we still have this chaos element here, but we can control how big that range of chaos is. Obviously, the chaos controller actually has range controls in it, because we're using Y. We've got this spread control, and we've got a bias control. But this obviously lets you have much more fine-grained if you have multiple levels of min and max. You can squish those up. So yeah, that's max, and it's related obviously to min, being the opposite of it. And the last one for today is the last complicated and weird one, which is the metamodulator. So yeah, we're just going to run through that quickly. And turn this down a little bit. Got a bunch of stuff going on here, but that's okay. So we're going to disconnect this. From the input there. We're going to connect up. So our metamodulator has two inputs. And we'll show that they're very different. Whether it's the modulator or the carrier. So we're going to connect up. First, we're going to try showing it using its got its internal oscillators as well. these ones. And we'll show how those work. So let's see this in action. So we'll connect. Oh, I turned this guy right down, didn't I? I'm getting better at this. Yeah. We'll connect out to there. Now we're going to go in here, set our sawtooth waveform. And we're going to turn this guy up a tiny little bit. So we've got a sawtooth waveform. That's being generated by the meta modulator. And you see we can control the frequency here. And it will change what it does as we go along. Ring modulation, bitwise XORs, etc. Cross-folding. So, let's connect this guy up now. So we'll connect our out. And use that one as the carrier. We'll start connecting this one up as the modulator. See how we just got both of those as sound now? So this will change. You can control this with the CD as well. Again, this squishes two different types of, all of these are two different types of signals happening to, that you have to. These bits don't work properly, just as a side issue. See how this is very different as you change these. Alright, now let's, as an example, we'll connect up the other thing. So right now we've got to connect up the modulator. Now let's connect our optic carrier. See how, because we've got both of these things connected up to the same. It's not very entertaining. So let's switchy those around. Connect that up to modulator instead. Obviously, all this can be modulated, has modulation inputs for a bunch of stuff. obviously running this on synths at the moment, but you can run it on guitars as well. So the meta modulator's pretty versatile for your more aggressive sounds. Again, and that's the end of stuff before MIDI. So, if anybody's got any last minute questions, otherwise, yeah, there'll be more stuff around that firmware update coming up, and yeah, new stuff coming up in the next few weeks. We should be able to get the next testing update up in the next few days, you know, this week hopefully, and then final version should be next week. Is the plan. And then, yeah, there will be other updates coming up. As I mentioned, that macro oscillator will get those other models. And yeah, so if you got any last minute questions about stuff, otherwise, thanks as always for watching. And yeah, we will chat again next week with MIDI. Thanks, everyone.